All right, folks, it's that time again. Your weekly Kirk Cousins update. And this time, it's got a little spice to it. According to Albert Breer from Sports Illustrated, there's some fresh chatter about Cousins heading into the draft, and Falcons fans might want to listen up. So here's the deal. Breer says one team to keep an eye on for Cousins is the Pittsburgh Steelers, if Aaron Rodgers doesn't end up going there. He also mentioned Cleveland, but that's looking like a long shot now. Still possible, just not as likely. Steelers in the Cousins mix? Now let's talk about Pittsburgh. If Rodgers doesn't sign with the Steelers, and a lot of people seem to think he will, then a spot opens up at quarterback. That's where Kirk Cousins could slide in, and honestly, that's great news for the Atlanta Falcons. Why? Because if the Steelers miss out on Rodgers, they might get a little desperate. Desperate teams do wild things. That could mean giving up a nice draft pick or taking Cousins' contract off Atlanta's books entirely. Win-win for the Falcons. Rodgers theories. Why the holdup? Now here's where it gets interesting. Why hasn't Rodgers signed anywhere yet? Well, I've got 3 theories, and each one gets a little more dramatic than the last. Theory 1. He just loves the spotlight. Let's be honest. Aaron Rodgers lives for the attention. Dude loves being the topic of every debate show. He hops on my show, drops a few cryptic lines, and boom, it's headline city for a week. As long as he hasn't signed, people like us are going to keep talking about him, and I think he's totally fine with that. Theory 2. He's waiting on the draft. Rodgers might be sitting back, watching how things unfold in the draft. Maybe he's curious if Pittsburgh drafts a young quarterback, like let's say Shedeur Sanders in round 1. And here's the thing, Rodgers is 41, maybe 42. He shouldn't be shocked if a team signs him, but also thinks long-term with a younger QB. But who knows? Maybe the ego kicks in. Maybe he's thinking, if you've got me, why are you even looking at someone else? That kind of thinking just doesn't make sense, but hey, we've seen it before. Theory 3. The Favre circle is real. And this last one, it's wild, but possible. Maybe, just maybe, Rodgers is waiting for the Minnesota Vikings to pick up the phone. Yup, you heard me, full Brett Favre circle of life, from Green Bay to the Jets to Minnesota. It's eerie how similar it is. I don't think he's doing it to copy Favre, but think about it. He'd get to play the Packers twice a year and maybe get that one last shot at a ring. Minnesota's got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and a defense that held its own. That's a squad. It might give him a better shot than a Steelers team that's still trying to find itself. That's where we're at, folks. Kirk Cousins might be on the move. Aaron Rodgers is still being Aaron Rodgers. And the NFL offseason drama is hotter than ever. So let's circle back to the whole Aaron Rodgers situation, because we're not done yet. The Vikings theory, the one where Rodgers ends up in Minnesota, that actually makes the most sense to me. I mean, yeah, Minnesota's been floating around 500 for years now. They sneak into the playoffs, but they never really do anything once they're there. It's been that way for about a decade. So bringing in a vet like Rodgers, especially if they aren't fully sold on J.J. McCarthy yet, actually makes a whole lot of sense. And look, if J.J. isn't recovering the way they hoped or just isn't quite ready yet, it wouldn't be the craziest thing to have him sit for a second year. Rodgers himself sat for over 2 years in Green Bay, and that turned out just fine. Does Aaron even want to play? Now here's one more theory that's floating around, that maybe Rodgers just wants to retire, and this whole song and dance with Pittsburgh is just smoke. But let's be real. If he really wanted to retire, why is he meeting privately with Mike Tomlin, hanging out with ownership, and going on facility tours? That doesn't scream, I'm done. That screams, I'm still thinking about another run. What's Atlanta really doing with Kirk Cousins? Now let's flip it to Atlanta, because there's a big question hanging in the air. Do the Falcons actually want Kirk Cousins on this roster, or have they just been bluffing the whole time? Publicly, they've done a heck of a job making it look like they're totally cool, keeping Cousins as a backup. Calm, confident. We're good with Kirk, they say. But are they really? What if this is all just a smokescreen? a way to jack up the price, to make other teams think they'll have to overpay to get Cousins out of Atlanta? Because if you believe Atlanta wants to keep him, then you got to make a serious offer to change their mind. That's smart business. Falcons. Playing a dangerous game? But here's where things get tricky. Albert Breer pointed out that this strategy isn't without risk. If the Falcons hang on to Cousins into summer and a trade doesn't happen, they could end up stuck. Cousins' family is now settled in Atlanta. He might not be too eager to leave at the last second in some training camp emergency. And if that happens, now you've got a backup quarterback making starter money, and maybe he's not even happy being in that role. That's not ideal for team chemistry. And let's say the Falcons are banking on a team like Pittsburgh to come calling. Maybe they're hoping Rodgers retires and the Steelers come crawling for Cousins, but what if that doesn't happen? What if Cleveland passes, happy to roll with Joe Flacco? What if Rodgers does go to Pittsburgh after all? What if Cousins just says no? Now here's the kicker. Even if a team does call late in the game, Cousins still has a no-trade clause. He can just say, "Nah, I'm good." He could straight up refuse to go to a new team a week before the season, not want to cram a whole new playbook, and decide it's not worth the risk. Then the Falcons are stuck, either paying the man to sit as the most expensive backup in the league or telling him to stay home and rehab. And in that scenario, Cousins might just take the year off, get healthy, and come back fresh in 2026. That's not a great return on investment if you're Atlanta. So here's where things get real for the Falcons. If they hold on to Kirk Cousins all off season, hoping some team gets desperate and gives them a nice trade offer, and then that call never comes, they're stuck. Now, yeah, maybe they're only out $10 million. To us, that's life-changing money. To Arthur Blank, that's probably couch cushion cash. And it doesn't even hit the cap. It's just a straight-up check he's got to write. But still, you can't ignore what that $10 million could have been used for. And even worse, they lose the opportunity to lock in a legit backup way earlier in the year. Like if they find out in August that Cousins isn't budging on his no-trade clause, and they tell him, "Hey man, stay home," now they're scrambling to sign someone with 2 weeks left before the season. That's not ideal. And you know they're going to be kicking themselves saying, "Man, we could have handled this in March." So if this whole thing blows up in their face, they're out money and stuck with bad timing. That's the kind of gamble that sounds smart in theory, but gets real messy in reality. Will Cousins actually be there? Week 1? For what feels like the 10th time we're asking, will Kirk Cousins actually be on the Falcons roster week 1? And honestly, I still say no. Could I be wrong? Of course, I've been wrong before, but I just don't see it. Why would the Falcons bring a situation like this into their locker room? We've seen zero signs that Cousins is happy being a backup. He's not built like that. And you don't want a guy with that mindset hanging around your QB room if he's not all in. It's like having a disgruntled employee in the office. It affects the vibe, the energy, everything. So unless something changes, I don't see Atlanta starting the season with Cousins in uniform. Shifting gears to the Saints. Now let's pivot, because if that Kirk Cousins talk felt a little heavy, I've got something else for you. Let's talk about a different NFC South squad, the New Orleans Saints, and this Derek Carr situation, which has gotten kind of weird. At first glance, it looks fine. Nothing crazy. But I dug a little deeper, and once you start connecting the dots, you realize, yeah, something's off. Let's rewind the tape. Derek Carr signs with the Saints, reunites with Dennis Allen, the guy who coached him back in Oakland when he was a rookie with the Raiders. Carr signs a 4-year, $150 million deal. Big commitment. Looks like the Saints found their guy, but hang on, it's not that simple. So things actually started off fine for Derek Carr in New Orleans. He got there, settled in, looked decent, and then, boom, shoulder injury in 2023. He tried to tough it out, played through pain, but then in 2024, the injuries piled up again. Hand issues, a concussion. Through 2 years, it's been rough physically. Now here's where it gets interesting. The Saints restructured his contract this offseason. And just to break it down for the folks in the back, when a team restructures a contract, most of the time it happens without the player even needing to agree. What they do is lower the player's base salary for the current year and then convert the rest into a bonus that gets spread over future seasons. It's how the Saints and teams like the Eagles create cap space now, even if it makes the future cap situation more painful. The gamble works if you're winning. It's a different story if you're not. So when the Saints restructured Carr's deal, it locked him in for this year. Big bonus, lower 2024 cap hit, but now his future cap numbers are bloated. It basically made it way harder for New Orleans to cut or trade him. They're stuck with him, whether they want to be or not. But here's where this theory kicks in. What if Carr didn't want to be in New Orleans anymore? Let's say after 2 years he's thinking, this ain't the fit I thought it'd be. Maybe the switch from Dennis Allen to Kellen Moore soured things even more. So he's looking for a way out. But the Saints just restructured him and slammed the door shut. That's when he plays his only card left, the injury card. He can't ask for a trade. He can't demand a release. But what he can do is say, my shoulder's still not right. Suddenly, he's unavailable. Still gets paid. And the Saints? They're stuck. Now, I know it sounds a little out there, but this shoulder injury sort of just popped up again, right? And if Carr ends up sitting out this year, whether it's real or exaggerated, that puts the Saints in a nightmare scenario. We're talking Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener battling for QB1. That's where New Orleans could be headed if Carr taps out. So what's their next move? Reach for a QB in the draft? Maybe. There's been chatter about Jackson Dart or Shadir Sanders being linked to the Saints at pick number 9. But let's be honest, that would feel like a reach for both guys right now. And if they miss on that pick, with so many other roster holes already, that's not just shooting themselves in the foot. That's a double tap to both feet. You're limping into a rebuild with no quarterback, no cap space, and no clear plan. So now, you're sitting there, still looking for a franchise quarterback, and you just lit a top 10 draft pick on fire. That pick could have filled a massive need elsewhere on a roster that's already got more holes than a busted umbrella. But nope, you panic, reach for a quarterback who's probably not ready, and now your rebuild is officially in chaos mode. If everything goes sideways in New Orleans, and I mean really sideways, there's a chance this team's unofficial slogan for 2025 becomes tanking for Arch Manning. Yeah, it could get that bad. Now, Arch may not even enter the draft in 2026. Word is he's planning to spend 4 full years at Texas. So you might be tanking for a dude that doesn't even show up. That's the kind of spiral we're talking about here. And while Saints fans have been cracking jokes about Kirk Cousins and his contract, Derek Carr's deal ain't looking much better right now. At least Cousins can walk. Carr might not even suit up this season. So here's how I'll close it out. Who wins the NFC South in 2025? Can someone finally break the Buccaneers' little streak? Is it going to be the Falcons? Do the Panthers surprise everyone? Here's who I've got finishing dead last. The New Orleans Saints. Too many injuries, too much drama, too many roster questions. That's a tough combo to survive. All right, that's going to do it for us today.